There is nothing wrong with your radio.
Do not attempt to adjust the volume.
We are controlling the broadcast.
For the next hour we will control all that you hear.
You are about to experience the knowledge and insights of the media mothership.
All right, yeah, you're listening to Media Mothership here on Edge Radio 99.3 FM. And as always, it's now, what are we, episode 140, I think-ish, of Media Mothership. We're broadcasting in Nipaluna, Hobart, Tasmania, in the Edge Radio studios here. On this show, we explore how media shapes our understanding of the world around us and anything in and around the world of media. We're streaming live on edgeradio.org.au as well as on YouTube and Twitch. So feel free to message us during the show on the chats at YouTube or Twitch, or SMS us directly in the studio on 0488811707. I'm your host, as always, Dr. Craig, joined by special guest graduate of the University of Tasmania's Media School, Alex Poljansek. Is that at all in the ballpark of your surname?
Very noble effort. It's a lot better than most, I will say. It's Poljansek.
Poljansek.
So in the, I guess, Slavic tradition, the J is a Y.
Oh, right.
It's a Slovenian surname.
Fascinating.
But I've had many shocker attempts in my past, and that's a very good job.
Thank you, Alex.
Full commendations on that one.
Yeah, well, I've bumbled very many names in the past, so I'll take a partial credit where I can. So, Alex, I brought you in particular because you're a huge creative powerhouse, it seems, locally, and I've most excited about the next steps you're taking. So, again, in terms of this idea of the work you're doing, I guess the direction I'd like to take it in is this idea of really, I guess, creativity and art, and particularly this point you're at the moment with travel, right, as well as the kind of local and global scene of creativity that you've tapped into. So to start with, I guess the type of comics, magazines, small kind of creative scene stuff you've been doing in Hobart, in the kind of independent art scene, I guess we'll call it, and how that's generated, some kind of cultural influence, some cultural power. So let's start, firstly, if you're watching on the stream, with this object here. It's an actual printed magazine called Ham magazine. How did Ham begin?
Well, I think I'll start by saying that I'm very interested in the concept of scenes. You brought up the word scenes, and I think scenes are one of the most beautiful, powerful things of art, where it's just groups of people in a place or in either a physical place or a virtual place who are all interested in similar things. And kind of through that, there's a kind of a collective group artistic output that kind of has through lines and messaging that kind of fits with the place and fits with the group of people. And I feel there's that sort of very much happening in Hobart at the moment. And it's kind of something I very much immersed myself in over the last few years. And with that sort of observation that I'd made of sort of the beauty of this scene and the strength of this scene, I wanted to capture that in a sort of print object. And throughout my university studies, I had the gaining skills in design and media and writing and journalism and all these different areas, while looking at magazines and zines as objects I really loved. And so I had the opportunity with a uni project to create my own magazine. I kind of pitched that as a project because I really wanted to make my own.
You masochist.
I know. I realised about halfway through the project why magazines are made by large groups of people that make large amounts of money, or at least get paid a lot more than I do. But so I came up with the concept of Ham as a magazine. I struggled with the name for a while. My working title was Hobart Arts Magazine, and I was like trying to think of what's a fun pun, and then I realized that could be used as an acronym for HAM.
Actually, the name.
And like, I don't know, it's fun. It's got a nice sort of spunk to it. It's short, which I like. I got to draw like a little pig mascot, which I've not really used for
Nice.
much, but I might make some stickers with a little ham pig on it at some point, so we'll look out for those. But over the course of last year, I sort of spent the time kind of thinking out what the identity of a Hobart Arts magazine would look like, as well as sort of coming up with ideas for content and trying to get people to submit to it. And then once all of that kind of came on my desk, is very much a slow process of design and editing and sort of very gradually putting it together, which was a very rewarding process. And so now it's published. I've got printed out a few hundred copies, and so now it's all about getting people to read it. And so I've been dropping it off in various different cafes and record stores and going to events and band shows and all these things, sort of dropping them out in the world so hopefully people can stumble across them and read all of the great articles and look at the pictures and all of the things and sort of interact with this object. And for the most part, people have been. I've been getting lots of really lovely feedback. It's been nice. There's a few people who've just sort of stumbled across it in the wild, which is always so nice. Occasionally, like there's like one or two people. They're like, "Oh, you made that thing." It's like I just found it at a cafe, and I'm like, "It's what I'm doing it for." It's like so nice to hear.
Really? So you're starting to get recognised, or at least
Okay, amongst scene people, it's like people who are kind of more engaged in the arts are becoming aware of it, which is really lovely. I was actually sitting in Altar Bar upstairs, and a person there like tapped me on the shoulder and was like, "Are you a ham person?"
ham person.
And I'm like, "Yes, I am." And I was like, "That was a great night."
Because I mean, again, in terms of collaborators, we've got a wide assortment of material that you've collected into here, from photography, video game discussions, poetry. How do you feel it all came together in terms of what aspects of it surprised you, or did everything fall into place as you thought it would?
My goal, I view art very much as a very wide area where I think pretty much everything can be art. And so when defining this as an arts magazine, I wanted to kind of include as many different types of art as I could. So I was very much pushing to have like video games in there, and poetry and writing and photography and more typical fine arts, and like all these things I very much see as all art and equally valuable in this sort of wider scene. When sort of putting together content, I put out for submissions and had like put up posters and put out social media posts, and lots of people sent me different things. And so I had to go through the process of kind of sorting through that and being like, what if this is good and usable? Which of it can I sort of, what works with the curation of the magazine? And I think I found a pretty good balance for this. As you said, there's a good diversity in it, both in terms of, I guess, different mediums, but also different types of people. There's a nice story in there about music and immigration, which I think is a really strong one, as well as sort of emphasis on more emerging artists and more established artists. And so that balance is very much something I want to do. Something I'm trying to achieve for the next one is I want kind of more different types of art represented. This one's very music heavy with what it touches upon, which kind of makes sense because I'm most into music of the art forms. And so there's kind of you can read my bias in the magazine in that way. And so for the next one, there'll definitely be a lot of music, but I kind of aim to touch on other little things. I reckon a theatre piece would be nice, or something in that, because I know Hobart's got a very strong theatre scene. I'm not much of a theatre person, but like I'm looking to sort of find someone who can write about that for me. But I'm really interested in like touching upon all of these different areas, because I think they all contribute to the creative output of Nipaluna Hobart, and I think they're so valuable in sort of painting the picture of what the city is. Because I think my ultimate goal for the magazine is for someone to be able to pick it up and be like, this is what art in Hobart is. whether they'll be picking up now or in like 10 years' time as like a time capsule.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's an amazing artifact.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, once you create a document like this, there's a certain permanency, legitimacy, authenticity about it. It's not something that's just AI slop that's circulated on the internet somewhere. It has a certain old world charm. If we can go completely analog, holding a nice magazine, and you're powering through this chiefly under your own steam. What are some of the locations you've been dropping these off at? If people are wandering around Hobart, where might they kind of poke their head in and potentially find this magazine?
It's difficult to keep track of where Still has them.
All right.
Because I find I'll drop, say, a dozen copies in a particular spot, and it's hard to track if those are still there even a week or a couple of weeks. And so people are always asking me, where can I find it? At the moment, I think the best spots would be Altar Bar upstairs, I believe, has a few. Suffragette Records probably still has some, as does Music About Frontiers. There's a lot at Contemporary Arts Tas in North Hobart. Those, I think, are the best bets at the moment.
Wow, yeah, you're mapping out a fantastic triangulation there.
I've had like some in Mooner Arts Centre and some at Kickstart Arts. I've had lots at Sun Bear, Cafe, some at Tommy Gun, and probably plenty of places I'm forgetting. I'm also aiming to, in the next couple of days, drop some off at the university campuses, so students can find them and have a look.
Great. And here's our co-host. I wonder if our co-host, Lord Taylor, who's entering the studio right now.
What's up?
In live audio drama, has ever encountered this magazine, HAM. You're part of the art scene.
Ham.
Yes, our special guest, Alex, who's come in, is embarking on a series of artistic endeavors. The one that we're unpacking at the moment is Ham magazine. He's put a call out, actually, anyone in the theatre scene to potentially engage in the next edition.
Wow, okay, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, you're in the theatre scene.
Yeah.
If people are interested, I mean, this has a digital presence. I mean, its mothership, if we were to use that term, is the print object. However, if people want to look online, you've got an Instagram page, which is just Ham, right?
It's
HAM?
Ham_magazine, I believe. I will quickly confirm that because there may or may not be the underscore. Yes, it is Ham_magazine on Instagram. There's a few posts there with some like previews for some of the articles. There's a little description of what the magazine is.
Yes.
You can see the cover in beautiful compressed Instagram fashion. And I also tend to post where I'm dropping them off on there as well. So if you want to see what I'm up to and try and track one down in person for yourself, that's the place to go.
All right.
And it's also the best place to contact me about any ham business. If you're interested in helping out or, I don't know, want to talk about anything, I'll always respond to messages on there as well.
Nice. Oh, we have a couple of comments on the chat. So again, it's certainly from Big Boy Nady and the old Razzle Dazzle. Excellent that Big Boy Nady that loves the magazine. Tasmanian art scene is seriously underreported, and I think this will be great. Yeah, do you feel like this magazine will be serving a bit of a hole, or fill something in the Hobart art scene?
I like to think so. There's
how to organise a zine fair. That's quite practical.
I like
fantastic.
having like a mix of things. There's like more in-depth articles. Then there's the How to Organise a Zine Fair by Josh Santaspirito in there, which I think is like just a nice quick guide, which I won't claim full credit for the publication, but after he sort of posted that on his Instagram, and I was like, I'd love to have that in the magazine. And since he made that, in Tasmania, we've gone from having one zine fair to I think there's 5 in this year.
No kidding. I know Edge has been at one of the zine fairs that was at Sound Hall.
That was about 3 years ago.
3 years ago. We need to make an effort. We need to get tapped in. We need something like a magazine that can
Yes.
inspire us to connect.
There's a Southern Zine Club, as it says here.
There we go. Right. Is that the right?
So plenty of zine things happening in Tasmania as of late. But I'll say with Ham and, as you say, Plugging a Hole, there's a few sort of like print publications, well, not a few, but there's a couple that come to mind because there's, obviously there's the Hobart magazine as an example of quite a commercial, very frequently publishing one, which I see very much appealing to a mainstream audience.
Yep.
That's primarily a vehicle for advertising, with some kind of a bit of events focus, but I see it very much as an ephemeral magazine, which is, I think, a realistic way to put it. But then there's also kind of longer term, like there's an Island magazine or 40 South that are, are like less frequent and a lot meatier. And I see Ham very much as a kind of in between those two things, where it's, I guess, that's the way to say it, more down to earth and approachable than Island, where Island's something you kind of sit down and read seriously, or it's like longer form bits of writing and it's very literary. While Ham sort of takes itself a bit more seriously than Hobart does, with some more in-depth writing in that, and I guess a more it's different.
Slightly more provocative, maybe.
Yes,
or,
perhaps.
Indie.
And I think, the very much indie and community focus is a very large part of that, where my goal is to showcase what is more community-minded and DIY, as opposed to, like, I wouldn't write a piece about Mona in here, or any place that, I guess, has the means to promote themselves in a substantial way.
Providing a voice to the voiceless.
Exactly.
Instead, right? People that need that platform.
So...
Upcoming feature, Media Mothership.
Well, I'm sure at Edge we could,
There's definitely a place for like discussions of like radio and that sort of thing in here. I'd be very open to that. So perhaps we can have a chat about this off air. I'd be interested in that.
And so again, the next challenge must be, how do we keep it surviving? Like how does a magazine like this survive?
So that's very much the challenge I've been tackling over the last couple of months, sort of since publication. My goal is to finance it through kind of three main piers. One is grants. So I've been kind of reaching out to various grants organisations and putting together pitches and all of that and sort of having discussions. So hopefully I can get a little bit of grant money. The other is through advertising. So this one, the first issue doesn't have advertising. It was all self-financed by myself. But in order to keep it afloat, I can't continue doing that because printing a magazine is expensive. So I'm allocating about 10% of the magazine for the next one for ad space. My goal for the ads is to very much pick things that do fit the theming of the magazine. So I'm very much targeting like more creative organisations. Like you won't see a real estate ad in here, because it just
unless it's a parody or satire.
Perhaps, but I want the advertising to kind of fit with the content and actually be relevant to my audience. And the final thing is through events. So I ran a launch event for this magazine in October. It was called Ham Crush, which was a collaboration with my friend Cameron. Made
Ham Crush,
a magazine called Crush.
Right.
So it's Ham X Crush is Ham Crush.
Yeah.
So we got.
So this what was it you organised again? It was a.
So it was the launch for the magazine.
Right, Ham Crush.
So
together with Crush.
We booked out. There's a small venue in the basement of the town hall called the Town Hall Underground, where we set up a little stage in the corner, put up some lighting, ran a bar, and had some bands play, and put some artwork on the walls, and had about 100 people come and pack it out, and had a good party under there. Sold some tickets and sold some drinks, which raised a good bit of money to cover the costs of printing.
Fantastic.
And also was just like such a fun way to sort of get the magazine out there initially. So I'm very much looking towards doing that again for the next one. I've got dates penciled in with a venue, which I can't talk about yet. Still in the cards.
The future, hopefully.
Yes. I've I'm not making any promises, but it's looking good. I'm very excited about the next launch. So that'll be good. So between those sort of three things, I should hopefully get enough to keep the magazine afloat.
And while we're talking, so if people do want to reach out to you, they can find you on the Instagram page you've set up for Ham, and is that the easiest?
On the Instagram page, there's also an email address which you can contact. So that is editor@hammagazine.au. So
right.
Either of those two things is perfect. I'm responsive to both. I guess it depends on the net. If you're maybe more of a serious inquiry, the email's better. But if you want to say hi, the Instagram messages is great. Depending on what you want to chat to about.
Is a website coming soon, or?
I'd like to. My emphasis at the moment is on the physical presence.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting talking about sort of online versus print for the magazine. I've been very consciously making it a print mag, as opposed to like a blog or a Substack or an Instagram or any of these things, because I feel like given it's very local and very community with Hobart at its centre, I want it to exist in the spaces the audience does. And so that's why I'm sort of looking at like cool cafes and venues and shops and all of those that sort of fit the profile of the people that I think should be reading this and would enjoy it. Meanwhile, I find online space very much is kind of throwing things in the wind. And it's very much relying on algorithms and kind of luck for people to find it. And with my resources at the moment, I don't really have the time or the time to put together a website or a formal thing. But it's definitely something I'd be interested in as the magazine grows and as I get more issues under my belt to sort of have digital articles up and have stuff on there. But at the moment, it's very much print is king for me.
Yeah, nice.
I have to think of a way to define the supporters of Ham. You know, like, what is it, like people that support...
Butchers.
Yes! Well, I was thinking like Taylor Swift, right? You got Swifties. Like fandoms, like Star Trek fans, Trekkies. Yeah, for Ham fans... Hammers? Butchers? Hammers?
I think I like butchers. Butchers is fun.
It is. It's a definitely subversive, I think.
I just need to be careful not to alienate any vegetarians.
It's a challenge, isn't it, with HAM? I want to circle back, though, to that term you picked up on early, which was that idea of scenes, because I am interested in how you might see or define that idea of scenes and how they could influence, I guess, local cultures and maybe broader the idea of culture in ways that big institutions can't, right? So obviously we've got governments and universities and art galleries, big institutions, but then there's also that grassroots bottom-up kind of scene space. And I was trying to think that what a scene is. Obviously, I mean, you've got subcultures, you know, goths, emos.
Oh, God.
I know, I'm dating to the 1980s when I identified subcultures. Well,
But this grassroots sort of like art culture is very predominantly Tasmanian. I mean, you only have to go into pretty much anywhere in Hobart and there's some sort of art scene somewhere.
Well, what is the scene, though? I mean, I'm feeling like
painting,
I'm not in
pottery.
The scene.
There's so many of that south of Hobart.
Is that a platform, a medium, or how does a scene differ, though? It seems like a scene has that indie edge to it, right? There's something a bit more than just the art platform. There's also the content, I guess, that it's given.
It's difficult to define.
And community,
I find, because I find scene in Hobart is quite diverse. But maybe using music as an example, I find like there's lots of like jazz and funk and soul here, which I find really interesting. That's kind of one of the early things that I sort of...
Right, because you could go out to Salamanca on Friday night and there'll be like something playing in one of the open venues, and then in some of the pubs there'll be a folk or a jazz. Or
and thank God it's not country.
It's true.
Really?
Country's okay, but...
It is okay, yeah.
But there's no country here, is there, really?
Not really.
I mean, there's folk music,
there
I would
is,
say. Morris dancers. Sorry.
Maybe a little bit.
Up at Mount Nelson, I saw some Morris dancers way back. But there's a folk music scene, and then there's a jazz scene, but you're closer tapped into that music. So
Well, it's been in the back of my mind for a while, trying to think about what I'm kind of formulating. What is my great jazz Hobart funk analysis piece? Because it's something that is kind of strange to me. If anyone's like more tapped into the jazz than I am, please tell me why is there so much jazz in Hobart? What
does jazz convey, though? I mean, that kind of
freedom,
metropolitan,
and I think
Parisian.
Because I think a lot of sort of at least alternative Tasmanian culture comes from like the protest sort of wildlife, greeny sort of stuff.
Do you think that's jazz?
I think there's a sort of jazz to it in like the freedom. It's kind of, I guess, but jazz is very metropolitan, which is in opposition to it. But I think there's kind of there's certainly a lot of energy to it, perhaps.
There is,
where it's very loose. It's not restrained. Perhaps.
And the antithesis. I mean, would the antithesis then be that country folk space? Right. I mean, yes. But maybe this is my reading of it with the scene space. But it is fascinating. So I mean, you're a music creator too, Taylor, more digitally based, but both kind of in this scene. So as a non-music engaged person, how do you see that scene? I'm curious.
I mean, I find that the Hobart music scene is just so thriving. You can go to, like, there's multiple gigs happening every single week of great bands. And as someone that makes an arts magazine, I've kind of seen it as my job to try and be engaged and sort of know what people are doing. And there's still dozens of bands that I just find out about every single month where I'm like, I've not heard of this person.
Yeah.
And yet they've played dozens of gigs and everyone seems to already know them. And you go along to a show and they're great. Grand Poobah is a really great venue for just like lots of DIY community shows. And like you just go along there on a Thursday or Friday night and there's like a great gig with 5 bands playing. And there tends to be like a mix of different styles. There's some that are like more hard punk, there's some that are folky, but they all sort of fit together in a kind of community camaraderie. And it's just really positive to see. Where it's also a scene that's very much based on live performance. Maybe not obviously, but like recording music is very difficult and expensive, especially if you're trying to record like live instrumentation. You want to have a fidelity to it. So there's very much an emphasis on going there in person,
which is maybe very jazz, right? Improv, live. Okay.
And you also see bands where they'll perform one week with just like a couple of core members, and they'll expand another week with like adding on half a dozen different instruments. And so sound can very much change from week to week, where there's musicians that will have to do like a solo electronic set, or it's just singing over recordings and a piano, and then they'll bring in like a full live band the next week. And so there's that kind of dynamism with how people perform, which makes it really engaging and really interesting to sort of see like the same bands over and over and over again, because it's always changing and evolving, which makes it really, I love it.
See, because so a scene is it sounds a little bit more amorphous than a subculture category, or because I'm thinking the fashion scene in Hobart, but then I immediately thought of, that term, the Tasmanian tuxedo, right? The puffer jacket, right? That's as far as my mind gets in terms of a fashion scene. But I'm sure there is a fascinating fashion scene, and I just need to do my homework.
Black hoodies. It's true.
Yeah, but again, we're not in the right scenes, right? I mean, there are certain environments where certain scenes can emerge, I'm imagining, right? So it's not that it's not here, it's not that creativity or witnessing that space can't happen. It's just, you're not going to physically probably be there if you're just staying home watching Netflix.
Who else is in your scene, Craig? Because your scene is 1920s superhero paraphernalia.
Well, and this is why I'm asking so many questions about it, because I guess my background is more fandom, right? It's more conventions, going to a convention and there's fandoms and there's kind of engagement in that space, like remixing and the zine fair I kind of, I guess have more familiarity with as well, particularly comic book zine fairs. Whereas, the music space. So again, it's interesting trying to tap into what are the examples of scenes as we're best defining them. So, Alex, you've mentioned music conveys to you a powerful sense of scenes as it occurs here in Hobart, one in which you can kind of participate or be a voyeur of.
I find music very specifically relies on people being in the same physical space. While, fandom as a scene, I think, has very easily moved online, because a lot of that is just discussion, and discussion can be facilitated in, many different contexts, while music very much relies on being in a room with instruments, which I think is what makes it interesting as a very local community, very place-based thing, where fandom, using that example, can very quickly spread across continents and throughout countries. But music, I think, can still remain in place.
Yeah, it can empty out the local in a way. So it's interesting, we're privileging the idea of live theatre, live music, embodied experiences that require you physically to go to a location at a time and place and meet there. It's very much not the asynchronous online life where it's like, well, I'll watch it on demand. I'll go on the chat later. So it's and again, the magazine itself, very kind of analog life. You're finding those to be very rich. And can these scenes then, even though they're competing against online culture, what kind of influence do you feel they have? What kind of influence can they have over one's life?
I think it's all just connections, really. It's about chatting to people. It's about, I'm a very big fan, I say it again, existing in space with people. It's like leaving your house and going to a place where there's other people and you see people you recognize and you say hello to them. Or even if you don't say hello to them, you see them again and again and again, as like you're a person who lives in the same place that I do. And I think that's really wonderful. Where it's like very much encouraging people to do things.
Yes.
And sort of interact with other people. And while it's a very simple thing, I think it's in today's very online, isolated world, especially post-COVID, where people have, I guess, learned how to stay inside. Largely.
It's a good point.
It's beautiful to sort of push outside because you...
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, just I'm just thinking here, it's really quite convincing in terms of, I'm just thinking like this show in itself is a live radio show as opposed to a pre-recorded podcast. And I far prefer that. I prefer doing a live radio show with all the analogness of it, even though we're streaming and so forth, but even that is live. But the thing I love about also live music and live theatre and a live conversation in the flesh with someone at a venue is you're not going to be able to go onto ChatGPT and say, how best to convey this thought? Or like I've drafted a point to raise in Reddit, I'll put it into this chat software just for it to clean it up so it sounds more polished or professional. You're basically there live, unbotted, if that can be a term, unbotted, and not AI slopped at all, right? It might become more and more precious.
Or it might become more and more AI slop. People just in gigs on their phones trying to figure out what to say.
Well, it's a fault line, isn't it, really, that live environment, the policing of the encroachment of that. I know live gigs, there's always been that kind of, should you bring your phone out to record it? Photos of people at concerts where people were holding their phone out. Or even like I was talking to someone there, we were watching, the wrestling, and there were all these lights in the crowd, and they said, no, they just put their flashlight on their phone and held it up. In tribute to the kind of previous lighter, match lighter thing. So there are ways that the mobile phone is used and co-opted into an old-fashioned way of I'm here and I'm creating a scene as audience in a live event with my phone, not simply recording it to then watch it back later and not being in the moment.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just take 1 or 2 photos and then away, and then enjoy.
Tasmania as a place has largely remained void of the whole film concerts sort of etiquette. I've been to gigs in like Melbourne, and I find it's a lot more prevalent there than it is in Hobart, even with like bigger artists. You go to like some of the big touring bands at Dark Mofo, and like barely anyone's on their phones, and it's like great.
Yeah.
In comparison to artists of similar size in Melbourne. Which you can maybe use an example of like Hobart being backwards, but maybe it's backwards in a positive way. Yeah. Where we're behind the times with concert phone filming.
Yes, and there's a certain good fortune of having missed the uptake maybe of a trend. Because it is interesting, those etiquettes and protocols. And again, the idea of the scene that's being defined here is one that I think is in a really interesting conversation with some of the, I guess, moral panics or media panics around the use of AI or technology to define life around you. And I guess, creativity and the creative arts is one of those institutions which is defined often as a victim in this space. But when instead of talking about the victimhood of arts, we're here just saying, no, arts is vibrant, alive, and we're having a whole conversation about the scene where we haven't had to, in fact, go via, the fact that that AI exists. It's defined by its lack of presence in a way.
I kind of feel like people will always be creative and people always appreciate creativity. And AI inherently is sort of devoid of creativity in its core. And I think people notice that. And the prevalence of discussions around AI slop and all of this is a realization that it is bad in a large sort of public consciousness way. And as long as humans keep making art, people will want to see the art that people make. I tend to be very much an optimistic person, so it's my optimist take on it.
It's excellent.
And I very much see a move towards people appreciating the effort that art takes and appreciating taste. I'm a big believer in taste as a concept of like, as long as art is made by people with good taste and consumed by people with good taste, it'll be okay. And so perhaps AI sort of exploded due to lots of people having bad taste.
That's great.
Which has maybe caused a bit of a backpedal as people have looked at it, and as it's become worse and worse, been like, oh, maybe we're wrong about this. And there's increasing amounts of, like, you see, like, social media videos of, like, how to identify AI, and all those things, of people making a conscious effort to be like, this is bad, and then really focusing on the analog. And so I reckon it'll probably be okay. I think art is fine. I think people continue to make art. I think people will continue to enjoy art made by people.
Well, that brings me to Taylor's point. Yes. Yeah. Jump in.
No, I was going to say, I think you've struck on a really good point there of art being made by people who have got good taste. Because if you look into the AI art circles of people and things like that, and you've got all these prompt engineers, and they go and spend 8 hours making a prompt for something, and then they use that as an example of them being artistic. That is inherently bad taste, because it has taken time, it's taken effort for them. They've done heaps of stuff to use this tool, but it is inherently bad taste.
Yeah. Well, I guess, in terms of where that kind of value of it gets debated or critiqued, it does. It will be interesting. I mean, there does already feel to be a reaction against it. Everything from but I mean, I want to get back to that point of optimism, because the other thing I quickly wanted to cover was the comic arts you do. So you've also got an Instagram page on comics called Rockstar_Mode. And this one fascinated me because you said you set yourself a challenge to write a page as often as you can. Is that right?
So I've been drawing comics for years now, and comics are a very time-consuming medium. Where it's like if you sit down and draw a comic to the best of your ability, it takes a very long time. And so I was finding that I was drawing barely any comics. So I decided to, as a way to improve my skills and just like be drawing more often, I would draw this comic called Rockstar Mode, and I'd do one page every single day. So what a page looks like is it's A4, it's got 6 panels, all square. I don't play with the panel layout at all. It's just purely following this grid guideline. And every day, at some point during the day, I will endeavour to fully write and draw that page. Some pages, if I'm feeling like it, are really lovely, and I spend lots of time and do like lots of pretty drawings. And other days, it's just very quick sketches, and they're really rough and ugly. But that's okay. It's all about the process of just getting it done. And so I found the story is very loose. It's very fun. It's kind of going as I see it. I'm just writing what's interesting to me at the time. It started off as a story about a rock band, and then I got bored of the rock band, so then they got attacked by ninjas, and they fought off the ninjas, and then I got sick of the ninjas, so I started looking at a fan of the band, and then the fan of the band ran into the ninjas, and they all had to fight off the ninjas. And now the ninjas have been defeated, and I'm starting like a Tintin adventure. And then they're on a boat, and I made it explode. So it's literally every single week I'm like, what is a fun thing to happen here? And so that's kind of what keeps me going through it. Because it's very much the inverse of how it would normally work, where I released a comic zine 2 or 3 years ago now called Horses, where I spent like a year writing and drawing it. And I've had the follow-up to that written for about a year and a half now that I've just been tweaking and working on to try and get it right, which I just need to finish. But
yes,
it's, I think, given I've got lots of different projects on, I like taking time with things, but also allowing myself, I guess, space to sort of make something quickly and have it done. And so I'm up to close to page 200 on the Rockstar Mode, which hasn't been 200 straight days. I took a few months off last year to sort of finish uni stuff and all of that.
Life happens.
But I'm back on the grind with it, and I'm having a good time.
It's a real testament to that routine, right?
Yes.
That idea of if you stick to a routine, you'll find yourself being able to achieve something just through that.
I'm a big believer in sort of routine and structure to sort of help with creativity. You see a lot of like young artists on the internet and old artists being like, I want to draw every day, and just like really struggle to. And I sort of also had that problem because I found I'd like sit down and try to draw, but like not know what to draw. But like with this project, I just know that I can always just do the next page. And just
so
having
do you use a timer or something, or do you give yourself like this is just going to be 5 minutes or 10 minutes? Or...
It depends on how much time I've got. Like sometimes I'll have like an hour between things where I just sit down and do it. Other times I'll just like work on it for like 3 or 4 hours just in the evening, listening to music or watching a movie or something. It's very dependent on like what's happening at the moment.
And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the other term I've been talking about a lot, like last week's show, was all about cozy, right? The rise of cozy fiction, the rise of cozy video games. And again, that maybe as a outcrop or a response to COVID, right? Or today's political environment, right? That desire for cozy engagement, not a high-stakes third act dark tea time of the soul moment, but instead something warmer and cozier. And yeah, being able to commit to a routine where you're not hard on yourself, where it's like, oh, that's fine. Yeah, today will just be 10 minutes, 15 minutes. While
I think it's also very much a pressure release, where it's like it doesn't have to be good. And no matter what it is, I'll still pop it on the Instagram and people can see it and read it. Because I think...
You're not afraid? I mean, some people... are so afraid of any feedback or criticism that they won't ever share anything.
Well, I believe that too much great art has been lost to the world because the artists have been scared to share it.
Yeah.
And so,
What's the worst? Has the worst happened? I mean, what's the worst that has happened?
I don't know.
It's a horrible question to ask, but you've never really encountered that catastrophizing.
Well, it's more hypothetical, I guess, where it's like if you think about, there's like plenty of musicians who'll only release an album every 10 years. And so have they been like working on music that they don't think lives up to their standards? Like, what does that sound like? Or it's like with, I mean, like you hear about some like Renaissance painters where they made like 100 different sketches and like concepts, but never actually committed to finishing the painting. Or even like I guess more of a mainstream example is like Quentin Tarantino. He's like his 10 movie rule, and like he's scrapped like 3 movie scripts now because he wanted to stick to that thing. And so like, what are we losing because of that? And so I don't want to claim that like my comics are an example of like true great world-shaking fiction, but like if people want to see it, they can. I'm happy to share it.
And you never know where that leads to either, right? I mean, it could be the thing that causes something to happen, whereas that wouldn't have happened if you never put it out there in the first place, right? You can never quite tell, looking back on life, what those foundations are that something you've done since has been built on. So
do you just like ignore any bad feedback you get, or have you not had bad feedback?
It tends to be pretty positive. I think because people sort of have acknowledgement of what it is as a project. Where my expectations are low, people's expectations are measured for it. It's like you just sort of, it's about the story and it's about sort of the process. And that's part of it. Meanwhile, of the stuff I spend more time on, I tend to have positive feedback for it because I sort of focus on more quality. But yeah, I'm lucky to have not received much strong negative feedback, which is always...
Just give me a second.
Please, give me my first true hate comment.
Well, I want to, if we can segue in this last segue, we've got about only 5-10 minutes left. France and what comes next. So this was really exciting to hear. You're off to France.
Wow.
What's the story there?
Yes. So as I was finishing up my degree, I saw posters advertised for, it's called the Rosamund McCulloch Studio Residency, which is a residency offered by UTAS. They have a sort of apartment studio residency space in the centre of Paris, which they have sort of open to applications for alumni. And because I was graduating sort of before the residency period started, I was eligible to that. So I kind of put together an application, not really expecting much of it. Very pitching. I pitched it as an exploration of sort of French and European comics culture.
Really?
Because I've got
it's
a
like
very...
Tintin and...
Well, Tintin's very much the tip of the iceberg for that. It's obviously the best known sort of
Mobius?
example of... Mobius is the other big one. Asterix as well. But European comics are very distinct... Well, not very... They're distinct from like more well-known like American and British comics, where like people would tend to know comics as like superheroes and Batman, Superman, and Marvel and all of that. And that's definitely a style, as is like Japanese comics, and manga is very much its own unique style, and therefore so is European comics. It tends to be like there's a lot of ambient space. There's kind of two sides of it's either very heightened like fantasy and sci-fi, or very down to earth slice of life. There's lots of, I guess, focus on small moments. There's lots of really great establishing shots and focus on place and little things. It's also beautifully drawn. But so much of it is just completely inaccessible in Australia, even because it is like not in English.
Yes.
And therefore you can't sell a book not in English in Australia. Or even if it has been translated, it tends to be like in very niche publishers that have a very small publishing run or just don't get sent here. And so there's this like whole world of comics that as an artist here I just can't engage with. And so the people sort of judging the applicants for this residency were looking for projects that are very place and European specific, because they don't want to send someone across the world to do something they can easily do in Hobart, which I think very much helped my application.
Wow, so it's going to be French and more broadly European comics, and trying to really go into the depths of a lot of the stuff which is not known here,
Yes.
not known outside of. Is it contemporary, or are you taking a kind of modernist approach, like 80s on or something? Or?
Well, I mean, I think the beauty of it is like it's something I know very little about. So I've tried to do little bits of research, and I've heard like descriptions of some of it, but I just can't read it. So I'm just open to whatever I can find, and I just think I'll just spend the time just reading lots of books and learning, and perhaps I can come back and tell you all about what I've learned.
Please.
And be like, I can explore the wide open world. So I'm like open to looking at like as far back as like 1920s stuff or 40s stuff, or like contemporary underground stuff and mainstream things, and like really whatever I can find, and just really learn as much as I can about that medium and that sort of cultural context.
And you're going to do comics while you're over there?
Yes. My pitch is research, and then also writing and drawing like a short sort of comic work. I'm thinking between like 8 to 14 pages ish. I tend to write most of my stuff based on like my life experience, things that happen to me and my friends and people I know. So I can see it being a story about travel. I can see it being a story about new place. But I guess we'll see how it happens depending on what I feel inspired to write about.
Fantastic. Wow.
So while you're doing that, what about Ham Magazine? Where's that going?
So my goal is to have Ham number 2 launch at the end of August. So I've spent the last few months before I go kind of making the groundwork for that happen. So that is like doing all the funding stuff. I'll put up submissions for articles in about a month, I reckon, and kind of start going through that while I'm away. I've done a few interviews for content for the magazine. And so the goal is when I'm back is just go into crunch mode and just like get it done.
Yeah.
And so I think the two can balance.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So we've been talking with Alex Poljansek and his great work on the magazine Ham, which has had its first issue last year done, and will be having its second issue, hopefully launching in August.
Featuring articles from Dr. Craig
yeah,
and Lord
right.
Taylor.
We'll just spam it. And if people are interested to find out more about Alex, as we said, there's your Instagram pages, which are the, what were they again?
So you can follow the Daily Comic at rockstar_mode. You can follow Ham Magazine at ham_magazine. I've also got a personal Instagram where I post like lots of drawings and comic stuff, which is Hold Ye Horses.
Hold Ye.
Yes,
Horses.
Hold YE Horses.
That's nice.
It's a bit fun, I think. And so, yeah, all of those are great platforms to follow what I'm up to. Also, I'll plug, after this, I'm going to go to Night Visions at Simple Cider, or have like a big stack of the magazines there. I'm also showing some videos I've used for promo. Night Visions is like a local films night.
Really? Night Vision Simple Ciders.
Yes. Oh, it's called Bev's now, the venue.
Bev's.
Used to be Simple Cider.
Right.
On Elizabeth Street. And like that's a great, happens about once a month. Lots of local short films are shown. It's like another really great example of sort of like positive community space. So I'll be there with a stack of magazines. So if you're around from roughly 5:30, come say hello.
Well, our enormous audience will, of course, swamp you. A huge fandom. But no, this has been a huge pleasure, Alex. We wish you all the best on the upcoming trip to France. Maybe we'll hook you up as our French correspondent.
Yeah, well.
A couple of audiograms. And any final words? Any other creative things on the horizon?
Look out for, I just finished a couple of works for the Suburban Review, which is a literary magazine I did 3 pages for, as well as the next issue of VoiceWorks magazine, which is a youth lit mag. So I've got comics in both of those, so you can look out for those.
Great. Where can people find those?
Suburban Review is a online publication, so if you just look it up into Google, they've got a website, you can probably find it through there.
Yep.
VoiceWorks is in print. I don't know if anywhere sells it in Tasmania, but they do have copies at the State Library you can go and have a look at in their sort of magazine section.
State Library. And again, a very embodied physical
Yes.
experience.
If you don't go to the State Library often, do.
Yeah.
It's great.
Old Port Gallery that's there. I don't know if that's still open. I assume it is. Yeah, we'll see this. Yeah,
Think about bees at the moment in there.
Really?
History of Bees, it's called.
Fascinating.
Love bees.
Gotta check that out. So thanks again for all the chats, Jens and Big Boy Nady and the old Razzle Dazzle on the chat. Sorry I haven't been able to get to all your messages. Thanks for listening. This has been Dr. Craig and co-host Lord Taylor. Joined
Eventually.
halfway through, joined by Alex, graduate from the UTAS Media School. Show notes will be available for this episode on YouTube or podcast. You can get by your provider of choice. Next week, we'll do, I don't know, more of this. Hopefully.
Sounds good.
You can listen to previous episodes of YouTube, Twitch, and at Edge Radio. Find out more about Media Mothership on Facebook and Instagram. Keep listening now to Edge Radio.